Murph?
She didn't do nothing. Blew the tires off.
Murphy's Law.
Shut up!
You've probably gone through this 1,000 times. The one day you leave your house without an umbrella, it pours with rain. You buy something from a vending machine and it gets stuck. Every time you drop a slice of toast, it always falls with the buttered side down. You probably think it's a conspiracy in the universe against you. But no, most of these misfortunes can be explained through Murphy's Law, which states that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And one of life's small annoyances can often be found within an elevator. Back in February of 2019, the Portland Trail Blazers arrived in Boston to take on the Celtics. But before their matchup, the Blazers wanted to make sure they got some shots up at Emerson College. But suddenly, out of nowhere, the elevator they used stopped working, which is what happens when you try and cram the entire team in there like it's some sort of clown car. At that point, you're basically asking for trouble.
You got stuck in the elevator, man. We're in survival mode, man. We're in survival mode.
You've been here for 30 minutes?
Almost 30 minutes. Almost 30 minutes. We're about to give up. Hot in here.
It was a red flag right away. As I was getting back in there, I was like, I should not even be getting in this elevator right now. And then when I got in, it was like all big dudes. I was the smallest person in there, so I was like, this is not a good idea. I forget who it was, had like 2 bars, and they gave us all one to split, and I just took a big piece of it and just ate it. And they was like, man, that was selfish. And I was like, I got a son. I gotta survive. I got kids.
They were eventually rescued just in time for their game. Now, that wasn't the first time something like this happened. A few members of the Grizzlies got trapped in an elevator literally only 1 year earlier, almost to the date, while they were visiting Miami.
Yeah, we ain't gonna make it.
Me, Mark, Quick are stuck in the Four Seasons Hotel. It's 3:42. We're losing oxygen. It's hot. Please, somebody send help.
While there were certainly many things that could have very well went wrong, thankfully nothing did. But unfortunately, the same can't be said about Tyler Ulis when he was in an elevator. No, he didn't get stuck or anything like that, but he was attacked and beat up by 2 guys, until Devin Booker came to the rescue.
Ulis, who you see there in the camouflage jacket, was holding the elevator for some friends. When another group of guys tried to get on it, a fight ensued. You can see him being put in a headlock right there. He's getting beat up pretty good in the hallway. Eventually, Devin Booker, who was wearing a bandana around his face, you can see him right there, and his friends got in the elevator and went down to the floor where Ulis was being beat up and helped break up the fight.
Now, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that the last thing we want to be in when things start to go wrong is an airplane, or any kind of aircraft for that matter. Believe it or not, there's been quite a few close calls in NBA history up in the air.
Breaking news this afternoon, a charter plane carrying the Utah Jazz had to make an emergency landing.
30 seconds in that flight, everybody came to the point where it was like, man, this might be over for us.
The Thunder were on a Delta plane, I believe it's from Minneapolis to Chicago, short flight. They had some turbulence mid-flight, and then when they landed, this is what their plane looked like. It was completely caved in from the nose of the plane.
You guys were on an airplane, and lightning hit the airplane. This is just like a couple weeks, like a week ago or something.
Lightning hit the plane, bro.
Now, those incidents all took place fairly recent, but one of the first occurrences of its kind dates all the way back to 1960, and is perhaps the biggest scare an NBA team has ever had on a plane, which nearly changed the course of NBA history. On January 18th, 1960, a plane carrying the Minneapolis Lakers crash-landed in a cornfield in Carroll, Iowa, after getting lost and running low on fuel in a blinding snowstorm. The team was traveling back home to Minneapolis, having just played the St. Louis Hawks.
We were playing cards just like any other team would do, to pass the time away between stops.
But it soon became apparent that this flight was going to be anything but routine.
They said the lights suddenly went out and that it got extremely cold, and that the pilot wasn't saying anything.
We started bouncing around, and boy, it scared you to death. I mean, the plane was just rocking back and forth.
With the situation rapidly getting worse, the players couldn't help but think that maybe this was the end.
We knew we were in serious trouble. And I remember Hot Rod, we're covered up with a blanket, and he said, Slick, you think we're gonna die?
Even though it was the middle of the night, the residents of Carroll got word of the impending disaster, and therefore were asked to turn on all their lights to help give the pilots a target, ultimately landing in a cornfield.
The plane hit like a basketball, hit the floor, bounced straight up in the air. The plane went boom, 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 boom. Boom.
Once they landed relatively safely on the ground, they all began celebrating and hugging each other, which you can't really blame them considering they almost met a tragic end.
Lakers Vice President Jeannie Buss said that night in 1960 was a turning point in Laker history because had the team not made it, the Lakers as we know them wouldn't exist today.
Speaking of crash landings, although NBA fans have it the best in terms of being up close and personal with the players, it also could be a bad thing sitting courtside. Having the seats that close to the court is not only potentially dangerous for the fans, but for the players as well. We've seen both parties get pretty banged up as a result of trying to save the ball, but out of all the times players crashed into fans, I believe Ramon Sessions got it the worst. I mean, there's really no debate.
Ramon Sessions went hard into the stands. Thankfully, his fall was cushioned by this friendly Wilford Brimley lookalike who got a good squeeze in on the old derriere, some solid pats. But before that,
all right,
a little gripping.
That's got to be against the rules. First of all, you got to know their boundaries, man. It's like that's too. That means
gripping for the
a quarter inch to one side, and we might have
there's only
SVU up in here.
Most of the geography on a butt is fair game, but you can't get too close to the middle.
Have you ever gone to school or work and discovered that someone is wearing the exact same outfit as you? While that might be a non-issue at most places, that can't really happen in the NBA, and for obvious reasons.
We have an issue. Both teams are wearing white.
I don't think I've ever seen both teams come out with their home uniforms on.
What do we do about this?
Although it must have been a hassle having to go all the way back to the locker room and change, at least they had privacy to do so, unlike LeBron.
So in true LeBron James form, the athlete got a bit too cocky last night on the court. This time his cockiness was quite literal. LeBron James accidentally exposed himself on national television.
This happened just moments before Game 4 of the 2015 NBA Finals, with millions watching on live TV. Now, even though it was clearly an accident, ABC was worried that it could cost them a lot of money. Because if you recall, about a decade earlier, Justin Timberlake briefly exposed Janet Jackson's breasts during the Super Bowl halftime show, and the FCC handed CBS a $550,000 fine for the incident. Even though you might not remember, this LeBron situation was a pretty big deal back when it happened.
Yo man, Cavs Warriors. Big news was that they showed LeBron's thing before the game started.
Oh, yeah?
And, do you think that affected his performance in the game?
Nah, you know what, man? You ever try to, go outside and just live your life, but your package ain't in the right place?
Yeah.
You gotta get that thing to the left side, jiggle it, you know what I'm saying?
He also ended up cutting his head on a camera in that same game, in addition to losing to the Warriors that night. Talk about bad luck. When a player hits a game winner, sometimes the celebration doesn't go as smooth as they would like. Back in 2009, Glenn Davis saves the Celtics at the buzzer in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals versus the Orlando Magic. He's obviously ecstatic, but I bet the kid that he shoves immediately after wasn't.
Big Baby Davis, even though most people don't think he needed to, did apologize to the 12-year-old kid that he touched Sunday night in Orlando. Quote, "I'm a big guy. Imagine if my emotions are going so wild I'm running by somebody. I don't feel them. If I've hurt anybody or I've done any harm to anybody, please forgive me because my intentions were harmless." This after the father of the kid had demanded an apology from the NBA.
That kid's father was probably thinking, what did his son ever do to deserve that? He never asked for this. In fact, none of these people expected or wanted these inconveniences that more than likely ruined their day. But I guess at the end of the day, all you can do is chalk it up to Murphy's Law and accept it.